Human power.
Just do everything all over again.
Okay. All right. So
It was a test run. Do it again.
So Pedal, do you want him to start?
No, that's just, I got the minutes here, so,
Okay.
So according to the regulations, the town regulations, they're local, not state or federal. Pedicab definition powered solely by human power only. So pedal assist is not allowed. And they can charge no fare for pedicab service. It's voluntary payments or tips only. Just FYI. And there's also a map online that there's a service area already marked out, and changing that, I believe, would be a change to the regulations.
So, well, it says acting,
Just FYI.
so as acting vice chairman. Does any member of the committee have a question for Erica?
Well, I actually had two of the points that I had a question about, or I was just wondering.
But,
like-
do you need to leave right away? Or are you,
No.
is he waiting to give you a ride back?
I believe he's waiting to give you guys demonstrations if you need, that's part of your agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, so Michelle.
But I was just wondering that what, like, why the service area was chosen like it is, and like why not, for example, around the bus station area. I don't know.
I don't
and-
believe we had a bus station back in 2011.
Oh, so this was from
So,
2011.
yeah.
But okay, cool.
Yeah, you notice right on the map too.
Yeah, that's when the
Oh, yeah,
regulations.
sorry,
went into
yeah,
effect,
but-
and, we didn't really have pedal assist bicycles, we didn't have a bus station.
Oh, okay.
So.
Which is-
And no one has come back since 2011 to see if they can have a thing. So they haven't been revisited.
Oh, okay.
Uber probably also wasn't strong enough to affect anything, and you know how that would affect the whole thing either.
But would the select board be open for maybe
So
like a change of?
Require a public hearing, it would take probably a month. You have
Okay.
to advertise for minimum of 3 weeks, 1 days before a public hearing. And then if the board would hear testimony or a request from either the applicant or somebody else in the community to change the regulations. And then the board would decide during a public hearing after hearing testimony.
So you said there was like a traffic jam. Was it out of this area?
It's on Pleasant Street.
On Pleasant Street?
So he was not using the pedal assist.
It broke.
Yeah.
So how did you come up?
He
Chopped out
picked me up
first.
right in front of the town building. We did a U-turn, went back up Broad Street, down Federal, took a right on East Chestnut, a left on Center, and then we went down Hussey to Gardner, where we had to push it up the hill. And then went through the monument over to Milk Street. We took a left down the New Dollar, the first left.
Yeah.
And then we took another left, which is Mill or South Mill?
Mills.
Mill, and then we took a right onto Pleasant and then came here straight up through there.
Okay.
Fortress.
I know, you know, in town, people were like, hey, oh, this is cute. Oh, look, out of town with people, a line of cars behind us. I don't think it was as cute.
Amusing.
Well, that's why I was asking, because
Yeah.
green zone, it's like that slower speed. And I think once you get outside that zone, you're gonna run into people like A to B, I gotta
And I
go.
think that was, I'd have to go back and check the minutes from the select board, but I think that was maybe one of the considerations of that kind of deal. You're going out of town where the bulk of the traffic is and is going different speeds. It's a hindrance to the traffic.
And that is kind of why I asked, and I was thinking a little bit more, wondering if you went up Main and all the cobblestones.
Yeah, I was
Yeah, we
thinking
didn't-
that.
Any cobblestones, and Mike had actually provided the route that he took. Was that
Yeah,
intentional to miss
yes.
cobblestones?
Exactly.
So, I assume it'd be significantly quicker if it was a battery assisted.
Yeah,
So I would have thought the order of business, please correct me if I'm mistaken, would be to discuss whether or not we would suggest that the regulations being amended so that it could be pedal assisted.
Yeah, and I think when this is written, it probably wasn't a lot of.
Right.
e-bikes
Yeah, back then
or
it was
anything,
not, yeah.
Really is
Right.
prevalent they are now.
And for it to have any chance not to be a major irritant, I would have thought it would need to be pedal assisted so they could go 15 or 20 miles an hour.
Well, I think the max speed limit in town would be
20.
ideal, yeah.
Right. So,
Because in case there is a car coming up and the guy could hit it or whatever,
right,
or girl, whatever, yeah. I think it should be some modification to that.
Who is name?
Uh,
Is that him?
yeah, Michael, Gormley, who's on the call.
Oh, okay.
Michael, did you want to talk about the pedal assist and the vehicle that you're looking to use, and then what this version that we have here is compared to the version that you're proposing?
Yes. So just want to quickly start off by saying thank you very much for including me in today's meeting. I really appreciate this opportunity. So this is a Main Street pedicab, which is a top of the line in the pedicab industry. If I were to get the license, I would get a brand new one right from the manufacturer. That being said, they cost roughly $8,000 to $9,000. So I wanted to hold off on that until getting the official license. So this is, what we have for the demonstration here is a Main Street pedicab. So it's the exact thing, just a slightly older version. And it has the same tires set up. That being said, the pedal assist on the Main Street that you are watching is a much older version than what the new one would be, hence why it went out. That being said, I think that was more so due to lack of charging it last night, which is incredibly avoidable and would not happen in any normal operation. So I'm sorry for that. And furthermore, my friend who's operating this was really kind to help me with this, but I don't think he has as much experience with pedicabs. So as far as congestion goes, usually the pedicab would operate on the side of the road, as the width of it is about half that of a car. So it's really easy for cars, in my experience, to navigate around the pedicab, especially since they're really well lit. So it's incredibly safe to do so, which entirely alleviates any form of congestion. So I just don't think he had quite the proper training. I tried to FaceTime him and get him up to speed, but of course there's only so much you can do remotely. So to that point, my experience has been pedicabs have had a indisputable net positive on congestion where I was operating the pedicab in Charleston and elsewhere.
Does that include the people giving you birth, include the 4 feet that this is the state now requires? And actually is a pedicab subject to that? I don't know where the regulation is.
So the big idea with the pedicab is that, or with any service industry with that would be if there was a congestion behind the pedicab, then that's bad for business, as it would make the customers uncomfortable if, you know, there's cars honking their horns and clearly uncomfortable. So we would make it our priority to move, you know, out of the way to ensure that cars are able to pass and flow of traffic continues, which would be in the training process to become a driver, the priority that was in that training. But for the most part, in Charleston, where I've had the experience and I've spoken to dozens of other pedicab owners, no one has had any significant problems with contributions to congestion. assuming that the pedicab drivers are properly trained.
Yes, ma'am.
May I speak?
Sorry,
Through the chair.
I am
Vice Chair.
Mr. Worley spoke at the select board meeting a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about Charleston. But I really do think there's a big difference between Charleston and downtown Nantucket. We have our only truck route going right through the middle of downtown. And that is one of my biggest concerns is impacts to that truck traffic, to the boat traffic. We already have on Broad Street, parking on the strip. We're allowed to do double parking there, for quick food pickup and bolting out, but that narrows that street down to one lane. You've
Yeah.
got tractor trailers, 18-wheelers, and a lot of traffic coming off with multiple boats a day. As everybody knows, the steamship authorities, amount of boats coming over increases significantly in the summertime. And I just worry about the traffic congestion downtown, because there's not always going to be a place to pull over to allow traffic to go by.
No, but like Jasper's dad said, every 45 minutes is the boat hitting the docks. On
Right.
Nantucket now, so that's a lot. And I was in South Carolina and I was in the pedicab with Sam Chambers and we were kind of doing a tour of the historic district and it was really kind of fun, but I don't really see how it's gonna work with all the traffic and everything trying to get out of town. So I think it's really gonna be difficult for them to get this to work. So
So would you advocate having certain routes that they couldn't use?
I think it's certain roads that can't even.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's
that
tough to
really-
even really get it to work.
I mean, if they stay up here and stay off of the truck route, which is Easy Street. Candle Street, Easy
Broad.
Street, Broad Street, and South Water Street. In the height of the summer, but that's eliminating a lot of.
Right.
Areas.
Yeah, but you
But
could,
we, in addition to just the regular. Boat traffic, they've got freight boats, we've got barges coming in all summer long. You've got 10-wheelers coming through every 15 minutes. If not more. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be, I had a lovely ride in the pedicab today, but I don't think I'd want to be in it with a 10-wheeler. Barreling down on the back of me who needs to get somewhere because I need to get back to the boat to
Back
get
to the
another
boat.
load.
Yeah,
So the pedicabs with the 2023 pedal assist are really quite quick. And they will move efficiently. So, and I do agree with you in Charleston. That doesn't necessarily imply that if they're successful there, they'd be successful on Nantucket, but there we weren't even operating with pedal assist. So I think with that added boost, that makes it so that the pedicab really can coordinate with the flow of traffic pretty smoothly.
And just a reminder, Michael, that the current regulations don't actually allow pedal assist.
Right, which is why that'd be the main, actually really the only thing that I would be proposing to change, because I think that'd be an important detail to ensure pedicab success on island.
You're okay with the map is as it stands also?
Well, I agree with you that, with the massive truck behind a pedicab, that would be bad for everyone. The truck drivers wouldn't like it. And furthermore, the customers would not be comfortable. But I think to that point, I wouldn't want to necessarily get rid of all of these routes, as sometimes it's nice to quickly go across them or coordinate around that. But to that point, it would obviously be a priority to coordinate around these trucks, because it entirely defeats the purpose of a leisurely enjoyable pedicab ride if we do not avoid them.
But right now, the map looks like it ends at south border is on Main Street.
Includes that area.
And so I feel like that's losing a good chunk of real estate that I would have thought would be attractive. And does everything, does this still seem like it's a financially makes sense with the map only as big as it is, or are you gonna need to seek to expand that?
So my proposal would be to just get 2 pedicabs for this first season within the restrictive map, just to kind of prove to the community how effective the pedicabs are. So it may not be fiscally viable for the first season, which is an investment I'm willing to make, just so that everyone can really understand how they function and become comfortable with them. And then once we all learn how that is or will go, which I'm quite confident will be a success, I think it then makes sense to discuss areas where to expand or where not to expand.
Do you have, I guess probably based on Charleston, some numbers on what your typical rider or fare is? Is it somebody going downtown to shop? Is it somebody just sightseeing? Is it somebody heading into work? Somebody returning from the grocery store?
So you can really get any kind of customer for the pedicab, but I would say a large element of it would be maybe people going from a restaurant to a bar, or one hospitality to another, something along those lines. Usually it's people doing it as a leisurely activity, so not necessarily to the grocery store or for a practical purpose as much as that, because it's a pretty fun experience. So it would be to enhance that, which is why my main goal with it would not really be to take riders off the side of the street. It would be to partner with certain restaurants and venues on islands or hotels, and then really just kind of do one route between those two and keep it within the hospitality industry.
So really not doing many street hails. It's all just it would be the concierge getting somebody a ride.
Well, it would really be, primarily to enhance the experience for those restaurants and venues for their customers, but absolutely available for whatever other options there may be, as assuming it's within the regulations.
So I have a couple of questions, and one is how you get around, perhaps get around is the wrong expression, but item E in the regulations, owners, operators should charge no fare for pedicab service. Operators should be paid through voluntary payments or tips from passengers only. So that would seem to be financially arduous. So I assume you would like to see that changed as well?
Eventually. That being said, I've spoken with a few different pedicab companies, one in Savannah, one in Rhode Island, that choose just to operate off tips. Charleston was largely the same, where there would be a suggested amount, and it seemed to operate well enough. Assuming, so to my point of hoping to partner with different venues and restaurants, in that case, it would certainly be easier if I could provide a quote for, being booked out in a certain time block on a Saturday night. But I don't think that is a hurdle that is insurmountable. Oh, the business could still function without any fares.
And so if there was a way for you to link up with the bike paths, the Matica bike path and the Pulpus bike path, would that add to your business, or are you really thinking that your business model is strictly an in-time model?
I think that would absolutely add to the business. And I think the width of the pedicabs is roughly half that of the bike paths. That being said, I was nervous to approach that idea before kind of doing an experiment within the already set service map to kind of prove and establish pedicabs worth or value to Island.
Thank you. So Erica, would you feel that if a pedicab was allowed on Pleasant Street, do you think that would interfere with the truck traffic and the commercial traffic? Or would you feel that could possibly be outside sort of the main area of where the commercial?
I can't speak to that. I mean, there's construction year round,
Oh, no,
you know, Pleasant Street clearly is not part of the truck route. Um,
Can I quickly just jump in? Unfortunately, that Pleasant Street experience was when the battery died on the pedal assist, which I can assure would never happen in normal operations.
Well, if I may, I'm sort of predicating my mulling this over on the assumption that you will be able to go 20 miles an hour when necessary, so that you won't be holding up traffic, as opposed to going whatever speed you choose when there's no traffic.
That was my point with that is with the pedal assist, I'll be able to achieve that speed. So that would not be a problem.
Did we know already what the experience was on Main Street?
I
Or
didn't go on the call.
has any, no, okay. Because if you want to go to Pleasant Street from the center, I guess usually there would be by a Main Street, no? I mean, I guess you can go by a Lily's, or no, which street
Well,
is
it
that?
was
Because
There's plenty of circuitous routes to get there, but
It was more taking into account this current.
no, yeah, of course, but I'm also just thinking like with the current map and then like. I already don't really like sitting in a car on Main Street if you go over it, like so I'm not sure whether that would be like nice in a pedicab. And if you also,
To the intent to avoid the cobblestones, is that a question?
yeah, well, the question is, well, one, what would be the experience be, and if the experience is, I would think the experience is not really that nice, so if you already get rid, or if you already don't have Main Street and you already cannot really use the streets where the trucks are, like then you're getting a chunk of the streets that is currently now allowed. So I would just want to know as well what the experience would be on Main Street, I guess.
that was kind of.
So-
Go ahead.
So my thought with that would be, I agree. To avoid Main Street would obviously be preferable, but I don't think as far as regulations go, if there's any, danger to it or reason to necessarily restrict it, as we will do everything we can to avoid it, but when necessary, we will then, it would be nice to be able to access it even for just a brief segment. And of course, if we did have to go on Main Street, we would communicate that to the customers before they agreed to getting on the bike. And, if they were okay with it, then we would proceed.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to restrict it or anything like that, but I was just wondering, like, if customers then would use it if they're going over Main Street.
Right. Which, as you said, it's also uncomfortable in a car. I think it's just kind of something that wouldn't be as preferable, but I don't think it's too significant of a problem.
I think that's a problem for 2 years from now if he decides it's all gonna work anyway.
So,
Well, yeah.
do we have any more questions for Mr. Gorman, or should we open it up to the public, see if the public would care to answer?
Just a weight limit, I mean. 240 pounds, so I'm like, does it, two of me in that, you're basically pulling almost 500 pounds plus the biker, so. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like going up college, I can't even imagine
Well, I guess that,
two fatties like myself in the back.
just
I just waiting.
reframing that is, do we need, would we want some kind of, fitness test to ensure that a pedicab operator is capable of taking a 500-pound?
I think that's in the regulation.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
in there. It's not
Okay.
specific to weight, but.
No, but the fitness
doctors
test
know.
is there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that too.
I will say that I had to get out from the hip for him to move it forward.
But I'd like to say I've lost 20 pounds in the last 6 months. It's drinking this.
Yeah, the idea.
I didn't know
Yeah,
water
Joe.
had that effect. Dehydration, is that a way to go?
Just thirst.
Sorry.
But anyway, so
Yeah, public.
public comment. Any?
I'll
Yes.
go, if you'd like.
Please,
You want me to
absolutely.
join you or stay
Sure,
there?
yeah, join us, please.
The public chair.
Yeah. Oh, the seat's hot. No. My name's Art Gasparo. I'm the chair of the Traffic Safety Advisory Work Group. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the work group because we haven't had a chance yet to do this. But I also wanted to just give a couple of my thoughts, and while you have the applicant here. I was part of on the same work group in 2011, and when we had, had discussions along with Mr. Burns about the original pedicab regulations. And from my perspective of looking at this sort of in the charge that I believe that I have, which is related to traffic safety and pedestrian safety, I have concerns that adding a new vehicle type, if you will, of this width, that now would have the ability to go 20 miles an hour perhaps, and that mass that comes along with it, along with the folks that are in it, combined with the passing and, of other vehicles, even if it's at that speed, or, trying to fit that within the confines of the historic district and the curbing that we have. The congestion and safety factor, I think, that comes in there is a concern to me. Now, do I think that, is it going to be a catastrophic accident? Maybe not. But if we're thinking about, whether or not to, our role as the work group is advisory to the town manager. So, it's simply to give a recommendation on something like this that's going to come before us, which we will still fully deliberate. And I don't know, how that would go, but I will, say that I have concern that adding this pedal assist and speeding this up, while it might address one piece of congestion, what about the other regular bicycles that are in the road, hopefully not operating on the sidewalks that they're not supposed to be? And then you have, adding this in, cars trying to get around them at this sort of in between width, if you will, of your regular vehicles and then your bicycles. I think I would have a hard time recommending for this from that perspective. And, I've been in pedicabs in other communities, and I think they're novel. I think that they could certainly serve a purpose and a use. But I don't know that it would be the best fit for Nantucket. That's just my opinion. And I'd hate to see something that caused someone to be hurt, either from the perspective of being in the pedicab and the speed that it's going, from someone trying to get around them, from other people that are already using our roads. Our level of congestion now far exceeds even that in 2011, when we had been considering these on the pedal only. And I think that, and as you've said, like, I don't think any of us in 2011, if we had been talking about what we call pedal assist then, I think we would have been thinking about those like puke mopeds, right? Like those kind of things, it was nothing like what exists now. And so I just think of, from an engineering perspective, the mass that would go along with that speed at that width to our confined streets. I just don't know that it's the best fit for Nantucket. So that's my thoughts that I wanted to share with you.
Well, thank you. And of course, I assume that your clients, Mr. Goldman, won't be wearing bike helmets. right?
They will not be wearing bike helmets as in nowhere in the country do the pedicab riders wear bike helmets because they are incredibly safe. And they've proven to be incredibly safe in countless different venues. I mean, across the country, and the majority of cities and even to smaller towns, they've proven time and time again that they're incredibly safe. The Main Street pedicab that I would order with, if I were to get a license, is equipped with an incredibly effective hydraulic 8 3/4 inch braking disc on the rear, and then also front brakes, which makes them so that they are equipped to handle the 20-mile-an-hour speeds that the pedal assist would allow. So these are very thought through, well-engineered machines that are designed to be incredibly safe.
Mr. Chair.
I would just echo Mike Ranson, Fire Chief. I would just echo what Mr. Gasparo said, as far as I have a safety concern with when you add pedal assist to something like this. Like you see on the e-bikes and stuff like that, 20 miles an hour is pretty fast to be sitting unrestrained without a helmet on.
Yeah.
Trying to get out of the way of a car that's behind you, so you're kind of stepping on it, so. And then you put into, you start thinking about other scenarios. There are kids in these pedicabs with their parents sitting on laps and all of those kinds of things. It just adds to the level of concern that I have from a public safety standpoint.
Art, did you have any?
My only comment was gonna be, I don't dispute that they're likely, pretty safe in terms of, being tested in of themselves, and it may be in certain other communities. I'm looking at it from the Nantucket application and the narrowness of just say Gardner Road that you came down, right? And 2 cars coming in 2 directions, and then you're trying to come up that hill, and then they're getting on it with their pedal assist, and someone's trying to get out of town at the speed we know that, people go. I think I'm just trying to bring in my local knowledge or experience, I think, of how people maybe operate on these narrow streets and how, that would interact with the safety of the mass of that vehicle. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Can I also add one thing
Oh,
to
please,
that?
Michelle.
I would also maybe suggest to put a maximum speed of 15 miles an hour for any pedal assist bike. I've driven one myself before in the Netherlands. I thought it was very hard to actually get to 15 miles an hour or 25 kilometers an hour over there. It might be a little bit different with the pedicab. Like I've never driven a pedicab before, but I think any pedal assist should not go faster than 50 miles an hour. Anything above should be considered a scooter, in my opinion.
Well,
But I mean, then you're going into regulations
Well-
for on scooter versus bikes as well, and
but
stuff like that.
let's address that under other business, shall we?
Okay.
After,
Yeah.
after seeing if we have anything else to say about
I have
now.
a couple of comments.
Well, that's right, please.
Jasper Young, owner of Young's Bicycle Shop. Thanks for joining us today, Michael. A couple comments. I guess to be blunt right off the bat, I think that this would work really well in the town of Sconset. And I see it working really well in Sconset, but I see it being pretty tough to work downtown, especially in the Broad Street area. I would encourage Michael maybe at some point to get out here and ride the pedicab a couple times around the block when there's a boat coming in. I'm down there every day, and it's congested right now, and it's just April. So when we get to August, that's a whole nother level of congestion. I guess I would also be curious to see what kind of quotes you have gotten from your insurance companies, because I can tell you that from my personal experience, just renting regular bicycles, our premiums have quadrupled. And the reason for that is that because electric bicycles exist, that now makes just normal cycling difficult. So I would want to know how many years you would be comfortable taking a loss on this prospective business until you started to make a profit. And then the third thing and final comment, something that I'm learning a lot about with the help of the chief over here is the storage and safety of lithium ion batteries, which everyone is still trying to learn. So I would be curious to know what your charging procedure is, where these are going to be stored, how they're going to be stored. These are all things that I'm having to learn about as well. Not something that I expected for myself, but lithium ion batteries have a non-0% chance of causing a fire, and the fires seem to be really, really hot and really, really hard to put out. So that's something to take into consideration for this as well too. I'm all about, I think the idea of micro mobility is good and important for Nantucket. I don't know if this in its current form and with the current map is addressing those issues. And like I said, I could see this being pretty successful in Sconset and cruising around the town where there's not a lot of vehicle traffic. There's not a lot of boats getting out. You can go at a slow pace.
Ways.
Yeah. It's people are a little bit there. There's not so much high frenetic energy out in Sconset, and that could be kind of more fit in line with this sort of thing.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've bicycled around Broad Street countless times, and I'm also sorry that I'm not able to be in person now. I'm unfortunately working in New Zealand now, so it's impossible for me to be in person. So I am sorry for that, but I have tons of experience biking in that area year round, and am confident that the pedicab would be successful. To that point, for context, pedicabs have been successful in other areas with massive congestion, and I understand Nantucket is a different venue, but I think that especially when you consider the slow pace of traffic in town, I think the safety concerns, the pedicab wouldn't even be able to get up to its full speed, which the pedal assist would allow it to move, efficiently to that 0 to 10 mile an hour range. But I think it would work. I'm confident it would work very well in town. And furthermore, I'm also confident that it will have, well, actually, to that point, it's also a tricycle, and I would like to separate it from the electric bicycles because it'll be operated by someone who has been trained and is fully aware of how to operate it, rather than an electric bicycle that just anyone can hop on and has one less wheel. And then to that point, for congestion, I have seen how pedicabs have a net positive in congestion, where it incentivizes cars away from driving into town, because people may rather call a pedicab from their home or their hotel to whichever restaurant or bar they're hoping to get to, which will then alleviate certain parking spaces and also alleviate those cars from circling around the center of town in search of parking spaces. As far as storage of the bikes, I have a few options available where I've spoken with a handful of private options where they have told me that they would be happy to store it. That being said, I don't want to go on record publicly stating which ones yet, as we've confirmed that we'll just wait until if a license happens, then we'll figure out the pricing. But I have guaranteed storage options right now. The bike's being stored on island. So that's not much of a concern. And I'm sorry, I believe I'm forgetting one of your questions that to respond.
Lithium-ion batteries.
Oh,
and
yes.
safe storage.
Right, so that with the Main Street pedicab is that they have storage boxes for them, which are entirely equipped to handle the the lithium battery. And also to your point of insurance, you're right, it is expensive. I mean, that's just a massive hurdle, but it is not out of budget.
So I haven't answered, do you have any more questions or observations?
No.
Well, thank you,
Thank you,
Jasper.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. And do any pedicabs come with seat belts or roll bars?
They do, and I would be happy to include that, especially since I'll be getting it right from the manufacturer. I can just that can be an upgrade that I can add to them for the seats, or I'm sorry, for the seat belt.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not
please.
to call out anyone or competitor, whatever, but was it Cooks or I don't know, maybe it was Young's? Remember that two side-by-side bikes with the canopies on them, and that just seemed to be such a problematic when those things were running around. Do you remember those, Erica? Yeah, I don't know. There's something about this. I wish it would work, but I just don't see it work for Nantucket. And I mean, sconce is a nice idea, but I don't even know how they'd draw to it, but.
Well, I think, although Art was speaking in a private capacity, the traffic safety, and then the fire chief has expressed
Yes.
a number of, and Erica as well, a number of reservations. So I'm not, I don't know if anybody wants to put this to a motion, but I'm not personally in favor at this point. Oh, please.
I just wanted to let you know that traffic safety's next scheduled meeting is May 17th, which is a Thursday. And we were planning on putting this matter on that agenda for their discussion. 18th, Thursday, the 18th.
Is it, where's that held? Or,
It's remote.
Virtual.
oh,
You just log on.
we like Zoom.
All right.
Just saying.
Zoom is easy. for people.
I mean, it was nice you got a ride here, but
You guys should.
No, thank you, guys.
Get in and take a.
I will do
walk around.
that. I mean, I've already done it. Like I said,
You haven't done it here.
I'll be pushing it.
It's a major method of transport in Thailand and India and other countries. So
Yeah, but those have, gas guzzling engines on them.
not in India. I remember being embarrassed at the how this wiry man pedaling us around everywhere, and I was thinking, wait a second. But anyway, that's nothing to do with this.
Probably smoking, giving it as much pollution.
So if no one has anything more to say or ask, then Mr. Gormley, thank you very much for your time. And I'm sorry that I'm not in New Zealand with you. I understand. Thank you.
So does it make sense for you and Jason maybe to go to Art's meetings and sit in and?
I very much so.
Do
Yeah. Yeah. So
I think all
I don't know
the
what
same.
Jason's schedule is, so. But
If you can't make it up, or if anyone wants to go,
Yeah, I
No,
would
I'd
too.
like to go.
yeah, yeah. Well, I-
Join, sorry. So,
Yeah, you guys
Right.
can just post like we did for feedback to join our meeting.
Right. So. Other business, committee comments, and clearly, Michelle, you want to lead off with your 15 mile.
Well, I guess like because it's kind of like sort of linked to this, but then more like in general. And I think we've had previously discussions about this as well.
Right.
Yeah, I've been last week I was in the Netherlands. I read a little bit more about their regulations as well. And they consider anything above 25 kilometers an hour, which is approximately 15 miles an hour, like equal to scooters. So like e-bikes, gas scooters, whatever. Like if a device goes faster than 25 kilometers or 50 miles an hour, you need to have like a scooter license, and I think you need to have a helmet.
Something motorized goes faster.
Yes, something motorized, but then because in the Netherlands the pedal assist bikes are more popular than here. Here the e-bikes are more popular. So for that you don't need to have like an extra license, and you can bike around without a helmet, but they are not allowed to go faster than 50 miles an hour.
Okay, so.
I know it's still a little vague, but
Any further public comment?
Could I make a comment just about the 15 mile an hour thing?
Oh, please.
I think,
Would you please, so
yeah.
that we can. You
just
get to be on
sharing what
camera.
I know about the main people that are making these and the regulations, at least federally and statewise. Most pedal assist class ones are gonna pedal assist you up to 19 miles an hour. So that would, effectively, if we made a speed limit on the bike path, that would effectively push all pedal assist bikes onto the road.
or you shouldn't go over the 15 miles an hour. I mean,
Or
a car can also go to 200 miles an hour, some of them at least, but you also have to adhere to limits.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think, I mean, my understanding is that we're not gonna have speed limits on the bike path anytime soon. There are a number of issues.
I thought there already was a 15 mile.
Well,
an hour
there is,
speed limit on the bike
right.
path.
Right,
Yeah.
But, so, chronic shortage of summer specials to
Yeah.
be patrolling and,
There's-
so it's just a thorny issue. So we have been discussing about trying to put up courtesy signs on the bike paths to remind people to try and be as courteous as possible, and so that was a discussion we had before you came back on board, Mike, with your predecessor. So perhaps I should liaise with you on that.
Sure, I'm just familiar with the state law on e-bikes and that 20 miles an hour is kind of a restriction for that class. And as an e-bike owner, I'm very comfortable going 20, but once you hit like 30, you're almost laughing in the face of God saying, this is, it's well past my comfort zone. 20 is right above the comfort zone. 15 is even more comfortable. But anything beyond 25 is just those where it is.
So if we have nothing further. Thank you, Jasper. So if we have nothing further, would someone like to make a motion? Well, I guess,
Before you do, are you guys going out to talk to the guy and do a demo?
well, I've already talked to him, but I think that's a very good point.
Because you might not want to adjourn before you.
If you do want to adjourn, just make sure that there's no deliberation or anything like this. It just.
Thank you. So, and also I think should we discuss when we're going to meet again, because I'm glad that we're meeting after this hiatus. And I would like us to meet in a month. And I'd like to discuss with you and Jason the agenda for in a month's time. Does that sound like a plan for everyone?
Let's speak to the email, just find a date that we're doing that.
Right, great. So bearing in mind that we let's not discuss any business when we get outside to try our luck with the pedicab. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yep.
Second.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
No.